And for today's episode, we're going to take a look at this custom Masters of the Universe Roboto-Cop figure that I made. So to clarify things, this is not an official figure produced by Mattel. This is actually a custom action figure that I did. And it's a really silly custom, but I thought I'd just share it with you. Alright, so the whole story behind this action figure. So if you have a keen eye and if you're a fan of Masters of the Universe, you can immediately pick up that this base figure is actually Roboto. And Roboto is this guy right here. So I made this custom months ago. I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, or even longer than that. So initially I got this guy, Roboto. This is the original Masters of the Universe Origins Roboto figure that was released this year. I think it was released this year. I'm not sure if it was 2020 or 2021. Well, anyhow, I got this figure, and I remember a few days before I got it, my best friend JC found one at Target, and he got it. And then he was telling me how he was just really disappointed in the figure. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know, maybe his standards are too high, because from what I've seen from photos and stuff, I'm like, it looks pretty cool. You know, it's definitely a figure I wanted. And then a few days later, I was at Target doing some grocery shopping, and I found this guy on the shelves, and I bought it. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool looking toy. I dig it, because I never had the original Roboto figure. And when they did the newer Masters of the Universe series in the early 2000s, the 2000X line, they had a really cool Roboto figure, but he was one of the figures I couldn't find. So at least for me to find the Origins figure was kind of a big deal for me, because I never had the original one, and I never had the 2000X one. And it was always a toy I kind of wanted as a kid. So when I got this, I was kind of stoked. I'm like, all right, I finally have a Roboto figure. And a few days after I got it, I remember I was at home and I was just like fiddling around with it. So the deal with Roboto, his gimmick is if you turn him at the waist, you see all these gears move, and his jaw will like kind of like move back and forth like this. So I don't want to do it here because this is actually my second copy of this figure. The first one I bought broke. And ever since it broke, I've been leery about doing the whole waist turning gimmick and making the gears spin around and stuff, because it didn't take a whole lot. I was just like messing around with it, and next thing I knew, it just kind of felt it wasn't working anymore. You know, you turn it around and the gears wouldn't spin and the mouth wouldn't move, and I don't know. I was really disappointed, because as a kid, I always thought the cool thing with Roboto was, you know, all the cool looking stuff going on inside of him, and the fact that he was a cyborg. So when I got the new toy, the Origins toy, you know, I was equally excited. I'm like, you know, this is one of those cool figures where his gimmick is what I thought was kind of cool. But I was very disappointed in the fact that the one I had broke pretty easily. After mine broke, I was kind of reaching out to some of my other friends who collect Masters of the Universe. And, you know, they're very fortunate. I guess I might have got a bad figure because they didn't have any issues with the gears and the whole gimmick breaking like I did. So I was disappointed in it, and I kind of was like, okay, I'm done with this guy, and that was that. A few weeks later, I found another copy of him at Target, and I decided, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna get him, and I just want a nice mint one. And I don't want to mess around with the gimmick anymore. You know, I don't want to risk breaking it. So this is the second copy I have. So what did I do with the first one? Well, after the first one broke, it always pains me if I have a toy that breaks, and you know, I'm not just gonna chuck it out. It has to like serve some sort of purpose or use. So I'm like, you know what? With the broken one, I'll just make a custom. So then I'm like, okay, what could I do with, you know, this guy? He's a robot. And I kind of stared at it for a little bit. I'm like, you know what? I think if I recolored him, maybe I can make him look like Robocop. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Robocop was a really, really cool movie that was made in the 1980s, late 80s, I believe. And it's essentially the story of this cop named Murphy, and he's a new cop on the police force in Detroit. And Detroit's kind of going through this, like, renovation, like the big corporations are taking over and they want to get rid of the old neighborhoods and stuff, and the crime rate's really high. So then on one of his, like, first, I think it's on the first day on his job, at at the Detroit precinct. Him and his partner Ann Lewis goes out to like answer some call or something, and he gets brutally murdered. And then one of these big, huge corporations who wants to take over Detroit and renovate it and make it all modern, they take Murphy's dead body and they kind of turn him into this half man, half machine. So he essentially becomes Robocop. And I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I loved Robocop as a kid. I'm like, I'm gonna make a Robocop custom out of my broken Roboto. So that's where this guy came in. This was the first Roboto Origins figure I got that broke, and I'm like, I'm just gonna repaint him so he looks like Robocop, and I'll just give him a really crappy package to keep him in. So yeah, this is my first Roboto figure that broke, and it was a simple repaint. I ran into some issues, but for the most part, it's just a repaint so he looks like Robocop. And one thing I was kind of, in some ways, I was kind of grateful that the first figure I bought broke, because the first figure I bought, this one, there was actually a defect with it. So with the original figure here, if you look carefully, I didn't notice this until I was in the process of repainting them. So one of the issues with this guy is the company, wherever manufacturing plant he came from, they gave him 2 left arms. So if you look here, here's his left arm. You have the upper muscle, the bicep, the forearm, and then it matches here, the upper arm, the bicep, and the forearm. And for this guy, his right arm is, you have the upper arm, the bicep, and the forearm. But then on this guy, they gave him 2 left arms because here's the upper arm muscle, and then over here is the tricep muscle, which is the back of this arm here. So in some ways, it was kind of a blessing that that this guy was eventually broken and defective, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't know any better, and I'd be stuck with a dude that had 2 left arms. So in some weird ways, it's kind of a blessing in disguise that this guy broke, and I got a nicer one that was actually, correct from the manufacturing plant with the 2 correct arms here. So with this guy, I'm not going to take him off the card because. Alright, so one of the huge mistakes I made in repainting this guy is that I primed him first, because you can't just paint directly on the figure because the plastics don't always accept the paint easily, so you have to apply a primer. But the primer I was using was from a spray can, and this, for whatever reason, this is a problem that you run across if you're into customizing. Not all plastics are made equally the same. Some receive paint really well, some receive primer really well. Other plastics are harder than others. Some might be really soft, some might be more rubbery. And the rubbery plastics are the ones you're always going to run into trouble with, especially if you're using spray paints. So from my understanding, from what I've read online, there's something in the spray paint, I think it's the propellant, that it causes the plastics to melt very, very slowly. And that's what's going on here. The primer I used was a spray-on primer, and it's causing the plastic to melt very, very slowly. So the paint that I painted over it, it'll never completely cure or dry. So parts of them are actually, like this part here is fine, the harder plastics, but like the softer plastics in his muscles and his upper legs, it's like tacky. So if you feel it, you can kind of feel the paint kind of like being sticky, so it'll never completely dry. So I don't want to handle it because I'll get paint on my hands and it'll just be a mess. So this dude is just pretty much just a display piece. And we can talk about him. So we'll run a one-on-one comparison. So here's the original Roboto figure. I just gave him Robocop's color scheme, which is essentially silver, chrome, and black. Robocop has this kind of like Cyclops visor, and I just painted the lens black, whereas on here it's blue. Robocop, he kind of has this like black chin strap deal, which worked out perfectly for this guy. And I didn't want my Robocop, because the thing is, I wanted to expose the inside of his head as a flesh color, so he looks like the actual real Robocop. So I removed, I think it was a spring or something on the inside of his head, so that the chin strap or his jaw would just like always be down. So at least the head color scheme retains Robocop's look. I think it's Robocop 2 he can actually swap out his arms or his hands and attach like a gun here. So that's why this kind of worked out perfectly also. Roboto has one arm, which is like a forearm cannon, and you know, I kind of did the same on this Robocop, painted it black though. So everything here is essentially colored so he looks like a Robocop. I was kind of an idiot. I should have brought a picture of Robocop with me so I could compare the two side by side if you've never seen the character. But if you don't know what Robocop is, I highly suggest you go out and watch the film. It's an awesome, awesome movie from the 80s. It's not, in some ways it's kind of campy, but it's just a really badass film. Peter Weller stars Robocop. The villain's name's on the tip of my tongue. It's the dad from that 70s show. I can't remember his name. But it's a fun movie, and I don't know, it's a cult hit. I mean, it's so big that to this day, there's toy companies that still make Robocop figures, which is insane. You know, it's just a testament to the popularity of the character. You know, I think the movie came out in 1987, and it's ridiculous to think that in 2021 there's companies making brand new Robocop action figures. I mean, the property it's always been popular. They tried rebooting it with a new movie some years ago, but it was kind of like mildly received. I don't know. But yeah, here's my Robocop. Made a cheesy looking card for it, and on the back I just kept the old Roboto card, kind of trimmed it down. I was just too lazy to make a new one, to be honest. So yeah, here's Roboto-Cop. He's the future of law enforcement on the planet of Eternia, and here's what he originally looked like. So yeah, this was a very silly custom, but I just wanted to share it with you. You know, if you're in the case like me, if you have a toy or action figure that breaks, you know, rather than just like throw it away or something, you know, maybe go repurpose it, you know, as another character. Like in this case, it was simple repaint. Maybe you could salvage it for parts and make a different custom altogether and make a completely brand new character. The sky is the limit. Customizing is very fun. I know I've been doing a lot more customizing videos than usual, but I think it's a chance for me to share some cool, unique, interesting content. As much as I enjoy just reviewing plain action figures, I like showing off my customs no matter how good or bad they are, just in the hopes that I can inspire other people to, like, you know, just go out there and take it upon themselves to make a really fun action figure. Because it's part of the hobby, and I don't know, I get a kick out of it. So let's wrap this up. Once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. It was kind of weird because there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about other than this custom Roboto-Cop dude. So if you haven't seen the movie Robocop, I highly suggest you go out and seek it and have yourself a fun time. Alright, until the next time, take care.